it's a little bit easier if it's not too flowy. So I think this one is perfect. So first of all, we finish our edges. We finish here the side seam, the hem, the front seam, here also the front seam and side seam and hem. Here on the front inside facing, we only finish here the lower edge, and on the back also the side and the hem. And yeah, that's it. You can finish it with a normal serger, or you can finish with a zigzag stitch or overlock stitch on your normal sewing machine, whatever you want. So I have a normal serger, but I want to show you how to sew it with a normal sewing machine. For this you can use the normal zigzag stitch or the overcast stitch, and I use this foot because with this foot I can make very nice edges, and you can find it on my Instagram site in my highlights tools. And then I set the machine here to the overcast stitch. Here the length to 1 and width to around 5. Here I make the needle to the right side. Yeah. And here I do it on 4, but you can check with your fabric. So here we have a linen fabric, so I think here these settings are perfect. And then we start sewing here on the edge, and here's this little thing, I don't know, and I sew directly here. So now we can start with the front seam. Here I place the pattern on the fabric again, like this, and we have here the little cross. And here make a little hole in the paper, and then a point on the fabric, like this. And I do this with my erasable pen, but you can also pin a needle here, or yeah. And I do the same on the other side. So, and then I place it here, right sides together. maybe it's better to make the point here on this side. So here, and then I pin a needle here. So. And then we have here the notch at 3 centimeters. So I pin a needle here as well. And then we can sew here with 1 centimeter seam allowance with a normal stitch until this point here. Then we can make a few front and back stitches, and then we sew here with the biggest stitch here until the hem, because later we will open the seam here, so because this is the front slit again, so I sew here only with the biggest stitch, and then we can iron the seam open, and yeah. So now we can iron the seam open. So now this is the front skirt, and then we can, so we have here the back waistband like this. So this is the outside and this is the inside, so the lining, and you can open it like this, and then sew here with 1 centimeter right sides together, and the same on the other side, and the same on the inside waistband. So then we can iron the seams open. And then we can sew the outside waistband to the back side, or to the back skirt. So here's the nice side. This is the inside, and this is the outside. And now we place it here right sides together. So this is the nice side and this. And then we sew it here with 1 centimeter. So now we can iron the seam open. So now we can start with the zipper. I use a invisible zipper, so here you can only see the teeth from the inside, and from the outside only the puller. So Mine is around 30 centimeter, but I think it's a little bit too long for the mini skirt, so I will cut it later. I think 25 centimeters is enough. So I make a small line here. So now this is my end of the zipper, and here I make a small line from the first here, from the plastic thing here, 1 centimeter up. Like this, and the same on the other side. So this should be here on the exactly same height, and then we can start. For sewing in the zipper, I use this foot. You can find it on my Instagram page in the highlights tools, because this is a special invisible zipper foot, and I can sew here in the small line here on one side, and the teeth is then here inside, and then it's very easy to sew exactly here, very narrow to the zipper. Okay, so now we can start with one side. I open the zipper here, so this is the nice side of the zipper, and then I place it on the fabric like this. So, and now I sew only one side. Then we can close the zipper and check if everything is right, and then we sew the other side. So I place it here. With the small line with the 1 centimeter here on the edge of the fabric. So, like this. And then we sew it here exactly to the edge of the fabric. And then we end here at our line. For the zipper, I used the normal stitch, here around 2.5 length, here around 2 or 3 width, and the needle here on the right, and yeah, then you can start. And I placed the zipper or the teeth here on one side of the foot, and you only need to check which one. It depends if you're sewing the right or the left side of the zipper. So here at the beginning it's not so easy. You can start a little bit lower because of here this plastic thing, and then you can sew the end or the start when you're done. Then you can check if it works. So now we can sew the other side of the zipper. I open the zipper here and then I place it like this with right sides together, and I place the small line here on the edge, and then we can sew it the same way. So now I place the teeth here on the other line of the foot. And I start a little bit lower of the zipper because then it's easier. So then you can check if it works. Perfect. And then we can sew here the rest. So I turn it to the left side. So, and then we place here right sides together, and now we have to start here in the seam. And then we sew here to the hem, and here we have to change the foot. You can sew it with a normal half foot, or maybe if you have something like this, because here you can get a little bit closer here to this point, because here this is very thick, so you need something where you can get very close to the seam. Now we can iron the zipper. If it's here not too close to the zipper, you can also iron it a little bit to the middle. And here my zipper is a little bit too long. I can make a few stitches here only on the zipper, and then I can cut it here, and then you can make a few stitches here if you want that it's not loose. So I place the inside binding here, right sides together. This. So we open the zipper or the seam allowance like this, and then we sew it here on edge. So, And then we sew it here with 1 centimeter all the way around, and then we can open, or then we can iron it and sew here very close to the edge, only on the inside facing. So now we can iron the seam open. And then we can iron the inside facing to the inside, that we can see the outside here a little bit, only a little bit. So, and now we can open it again like this, and then we place the seam allowance to the facing, and then we sew here from the outside very close to the edge with the seam allowance. So then we turn it here right sides together like this, and then we sew here close to the zipper up here, and then we can turn it around. So now we can start with the elastic in the back side. And for this, we place the inside facing like this. And then we sew from the outside here in the seam shadow, from the first seam, here only the back, here to the other seam, but only here. Then we can pull in the elastic tape, and then we can sew it here in these 2 seams. So on the elastic here, I made a small line at 1 centimeter on both sides, and now we can pull it through the tunnel here. I start here on the zipper, Then I place the end of the elastic here 1 centimeter before the seam starts here. So now here's the end of the elastic. So now I can sew here in the seam shadow from the outside. So, and then I pull it all the way out. So, and now we can pin a needle here. Like this. And then we can try it on. And just check if the elastic is too long or too small. And then we can sew it here also from the outside in the seam shadow, and then we can sew the hem. So now we can iron the hem 3 centimeter up like this, and then we can make here the slit and the hem, and then we're done. So now we can sew the slit. I make here a small line and here, so on the hem and on the slit seam allowance, the same here. Then we can open it, and we can open also here the seam. So, and then we open the hem, and then we place these 2 lines together like this, and then we sew here from the edge to the point with the 2 lines. So from here. If it's not so easy for you, you can also make a line here and then sew. We can put our finger in here and place it like this, and then turn it to the other side. So, and then we can iron it, and I do the same on the other side. After that, you can sew here the hem. You can do it with the machine or by hand, and yeah, then we're done. You can also sew here, but I don't like it. I think it's nicer if it looks like this only. Yeah, but you can do it however you want. And now you can sew the slit a little bit. So just make a small knot at the end, And then first I only sew here in the seam allowance, and then I only take one yarn from the outside like this, and then here from the seam allowance. And yeah, this is a hand blind stitch, and you can sew here all the way down to the hem, and you can sew the hem with a normal sewing machine, or also with the blind stitch. And then only here through one yarn again, and then here through the seam allowance of the slit, like this. So now we can iron the hem for the blind stitch. So I fold the hem here to the inside, so, and here should be around 1 centimeter here. Then we iron it. And then I use this foot. You can find it on my Instagram in the tools highlight. And here on this white plastic thing should be the edge of the fold here, like this, and then we can sew it this way. And then we turn the hand wheel until the needle moves to the left side. Like this. So, then I place my fabric here. Then I can change the width here of the plastic thing to make it a little bit wider, and because the needle should be very narrow here to the fold. So, and then from the outside you only see here these little points here.